Today, we're diving into someone really fascinating, Dr. Christian Friedrich Samuel Hahnemann. He's the founder of homeopathy, lived from 1755 to 1843. And our deep dive, it's based on this unique collection of notes, biographical bits shared with us, gives a pretty intimate look at the man, and the roots of his ideas.
Exactly. And for anyone involved with homeopathy today, practitioners, students, teachers, even critics, really understanding Hahnemann the person is, I think, crucial. His life story, beyond just the professional stuff, it offers some powerful lessons, practical ones, about persistence, about challenging the status quo.
Right. That's the mission today. To unpack this journey, the sources describe him not just as like a historical figure, but as a shining example. Their words of truth-seeking, struggle, perseverance. We want to see how those personal experiences really forged his path. Okay, let's unpack this. The source describes his life as a shining example of several virtues. It highlights things like study, being progressive, seeking truth, and really establishing ideals in truth.
Yeah, and you can see how these played out. I mean, the notes talk about his persistent effort, his self-confidence, even when facing, well, poverty and really tough conditions. Plus, this keen observation skill he had and just unwavering perseverance, that's what led to his success ultimately. His life really embodied these principles. What's fascinating here is how these foundational personal traits laid the groundwork for his groundbreaking work. What stands out to you about these characteristics?
That's a great question. For me, it's that combination of truth-seeking and progressiveness. I mean, think about the time period. To actually push for something new based on experimentation when medicine was so set in its ways, that took serious guts. It really makes you wonder where that drive came from. So let's look at his roots. His family. Oh, and first, just a quick note on the name. We usually say Hahnemann in English, right? But the German is closer to Hahnemann, just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay, paternal side. His grandfather, Christoph Hahnemann, he worked with paints, brushes. This was in Lochstedt, Germany.
But the big influence, according to these notes, was definitely his father, Christian Gottfried Hahnemann. He's described as talented and thoughtful. A skilled artist, too. Painted on porcelain, worked in a factory in Meissen. And crucially, his father gave him this piece of advice. Only accept knowledge through experimentation. Test things out for yourself. That idea, plus the encouragement he got from his teachers, that apparently provided immense inspiration, really fueled his success later on. It's quite a foundation, isn't it? Parental advice plus good teachers.
Definitely. And then on his mother's side, Johanna Christiana, she was his father's second wife. They had 4 kids together. August, Charlotte, then Christian Friedrich Samuel, that's our Dr. Hahnemann, and Minna. So 1 brother, 2 sisters for him. Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting looking at his personal life, his marriages. Hahnemann was married twice, and our notes suggest both women played incredibly distinct, important roles. First, there was Johann Henriette Leopoldine Küssler. They got married back on November 17th, 1782, or maybe December 1st. There's a slight discrepancy. This was in Galmern, Germany. He was about 28, she was just 19. And she's described as a capable companion through what sounds like a really tough time, difficult, impoverished, and nomadic life, the notes say. She passed away on March 31st, 1830. They had, 2 sons and 9 daughters together. Then, much later in life, his second marriage. This was to Marie Melanie Derville, January 18th, 1835, in Kuchen, Germany. Now get this, he was almost 80, she was 32. And she's described as French, very beautiful, wealthy, a distinguished painter, and even a famous poet. Quite a character.
Absolutely. And Melanie, she apparently contributed significantly to his, extreme success in those later years. She wasn't just a companion, she actually practiced homeopathy herself and helped him with his medical work. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources are really clear that both wives played an extremely important role, domestically and professionally. And Hahnemann himself, he praised them profusely in his writings. It really highlights how crucial that partnership was for him.
Okay, so that leads us to the next chapter, which is, it's pretty intriguing, maybe a bit controversial. It's about his legacy after he died, specifically getting his works published. Melanie Derville, his second wife, ended up with all of manuscripts, important stuff, but she asked for a huge amount of money, $50,000, the notes say, from publishers. This included the 6th edition of the Organon of Medicine, which is like the foundational text of homeopathy, right? Plus letters, patient records. Because of that demand, these key works basically stayed unpublished until after she died in 1878.
Yeah, this raises an important question. Because, Melanie often gets the blame for that long delay. The source material we have clarifies there were actually other pretty significant factors involved. It wasn't just her asking price that held things up until 1921. Think about it. You had major upheavals, like the Franco-Prussian War, German Civil War. Publishing wasn't exactly easy then. Plus, there was real opposition from Hahnemann's adversaries, people like Dr. Trinks, who were actively fighting against homeopathy. And maybe the most critical point, Hahnemann himself had apparently given Melanie explicit instructions. He wanted her to personally oversee the publication, especially of that 6th edition of the Organon. He trusted her with it. So yes, the delay definitely caused immense harm and confusion in the homeopathic world, no doubt about that. But blaming Melanie solely seems, well, maybe not entirely fair given all these circumstances. It was complicated.
Wow, okay. That adds a lot of context. And there's one final twist to this whole story about the legacy. Melanie didn't have biological children, but apparently, at Hahnemann's specific request, right before he died, she adopted a little girl, 5 years old, named Sophie Burrer. And Sophie later married the eldest son of another famous homeopath, Dr. Baron von Boninghausen. He was also a big name in the field. After Melanie died, Sophie tried to get Hahnemann's unpublished stuff preserved and, crucially, get that 6th edition of the Organon published. But sadly, she wasn't successful in her lifetime. Sophie Burrer passed away on February 7th, 1899. So what does this all mean? When we pull back and look at Hahnemann's life, it really feels like a story about incredible perseverance, doesn't it? That constant search for truth. And you see how deeply his family roots the support from his wives in very different ways, and then this really complex, tangled journey of his writings after his death, how all that shaped him in his legacy.
Indeed. And we've really only scratched the surface here, focusing on those personal, family, marital aspects, and the drama around the manuscripts. The source itself hints there's much more to his biography. But it makes you think, right, we've seen how intensely personal details, family dynamics, even battles over his intellectual property unfolded.
Yeah.
How do you think those echoes the human story? The controversies continue to shape how people see homeopathy, how it evolves, even today, so long after his death.
That is a powerful question to leave things on, something for all of us to consider. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. We definitely encourage you to continue your own journey of discovery.